Here, we have this so difficult. We have what we see on TV, 3 professionally trained match officials on the field, a full TMO system. There's actually 3 operators helping a TMO, and then what I don't have here is another room where there's a foul play review officer, and then people like myself who sometimes get the opportunity to be sighting, and we have all camera angles as well. And 7s, we have an hour to 2 hours after a game. And in 15, sometimes we have 12 hours, 24 hours to do any critical foul play incidents that were missed by the 4 or 5 people ahead of us. We have an opportunity to sweep and clean up on that as well. So that's what we see the high level. Now, what do we experience? So, you might be a fan watching rugby on the couch with a few pops, and you're getting that beautiful experience of a really well officiated game. It's fun. We'd all like to be at home watching the European Cup right now, and we would experience that. But what we have on a Saturday or a Sunday is typically a gentleman up on the top right, fairly new to refereeing. Oh, is that head contact in front of him? He's heard of that once or twice, maybe this year. But that's a tough call for him to make in the moment where you get a fraction of a second to see something. Did their heads splash or did their ponytails just swing? That's a tough call to make. I often get things like this clip here sent to me from an in-goal photographer saying he nearly strangled him and pulled him down and dislocated his knee when he went down. So a week or 2 later, I finally get the full video for that, and I can see that there was an amazing breakaway, referee not quite up with the play, but is seeing that from behind and can't quite see where the arm is going around the neck of the player. And they're just worried more about, is this going to be a try or not, because they're right at the try line here. Okay, so why did I choose this topic? John reached out saying, hey, do you mind having a little chat at the club conference? Sure, what do you want to be on? Whatever you think's relevant. Who's going to be in the room? I thought it was to the masses. It was supposed to be for some coaches, some club admin, and possibly some referees, and then that sort of changed as the weeks got a bit closer. So just keep that in mind when we go over some of the discussions here. There's going to be lots for referees to take away from it, but I think also club coaches and people that run clubs, good for them to go through this exercise as well. So for referees, always good to have calibration when we're talking about foul play and the processes that World Rugby wants. For coaches, I think it gives them an opportunity to understand, how do the refs come up with this? They're just talking out there, when it comes to making decisions, aren't they? No, there's an actual process that we try to teach them. And it's hard to teach people. There's 230, 40 refs across the province. We don't have a clubhouse to go to. We try to run little meetings online where we're disseminating some information, but there's lots and lots of things to get through. So level 1 course, there's a bit of conversations around the head contact process, but in an 8-hour course, head contact process probably gets about 8 minutes. And that's the reality of where we are for new and developing referees. But also on a Saturday, like the coaches, they can't hear what the ref is saying. So even if we have a perfectly executed verbal communication about a process when it comes to a high tackle with head contact, the coaches can't hear it. They make some assumptions because they might have been in a different part, or they were in a different, had a different perspective in the field. So they think something's happened or didn't happen. The ref was either in a very good position or maybe weren't, but they have to make the call as they see it. And those not hearing it, making assumptions, causes a lot of frustration. And then, like I spoke about before, the refs on TV, we'll go through some examples later about how much extra input that they get and how that kind of sets us up for failure. And there's really unrealistic expectations in our amateur game. And obviously we care about player safety. We want everyone to know that we're trying to be as unbiased as possible, use the facts and use these processes to help us make these decisions. So what are some of the processes? What do they look like? So here's the head contact process as it's laid out by World Rugby. Looks a little bit confusing, but that is the world of refereeing. It is a little bit confusing and there's a lot of gray area. But if we follow the steps in the purple, that's what World Rugby says, hey, here's the 4 questions you want to ask yourself every time you see some form of head contact. So it could be high tackles, that's probably the most frequent time, but it might be at a clear out, at a ruck, It might be a ball carrier going into contact with an elbow up, that sort of thing. It's not always just high tackle, so that's important to keep in mind. So a reminder for referees in the room, has head contact occurred, yes or no? Let's just go down to the yeses right now. Was there foul play? Meaning was someone at fault? Yes. What's the degree of danger? That is a judgment call, but based on facts that you can see. And then when you get to the end of that degree of danger here, if you're at, hey, that looked like a high degree of danger, then you start a red card. And then you say, now, is there any mitigation that I can apply here to bring it down one step to the yellow card? Or if it was, it was low danger, it's gonna be a penalty. We really just keep it at penalty. We don't really get rid of mitigation. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stopped and thought about it too long. We would have already been able to play on because we knew that's just a rugby incident. So this yellow is sort of the funny business where we say, well, it's not really high degree of danger, but it's not so low that I'm just thinking penalty only. So it's in that middle gray area that we're at yellow, and we can bring it down to penalty if we have some mitigating circumstances. So in the white box on the right, the top white box, you'll see those are some reasons for mitigation. And then, blah, blah, blah. So play on, obviously, there's a sudden significant drop in height, ball carrier, change of direction, usually the tackler has no time to adjust, someone's just sort of popped up in front of them, causing maybe an involuntary collision. They weren't seeking out the collision, which happens sometimes. And also play on if there's no leading arm, meaning the shoulder, swinging arm. Okay, when we're into yellow card and penalty, we're using language when we're describing an incident and we're describing a sanction using these words. So it's indirect contact. So maybe hit on the chest first, that absorbed a lot of the force, and then slid up. Now we're into yellow card or penalty territory. This was low force, it was at low speed, and like we said before, no leading arm, shoulder, forearm. So we want to use these words, and as we go on in the presentation, you're going to hear things like this as people are discussing them for some examples, and then what we'll ask is, when we go through some examples, if it works, and hopefully it works today, you'll get your phone out, you'll take a picture of a QR code, and that'll get you into a little quiz, and then you can give this a shot yourself. And as you're making your decision, remember those four questions. Now, there's a few that aren't foul play as in high tackle, but they might be cynical actions or other things that happen in a game. So there might be different questions you're going to ask yourself, which some of our seasoned referees knows about, and those who are maybe newer or not in that realm, we can talk through what are the questions you'd be asking in those scenarios. So think of those. Was there head contact? Was there foul play? What's the degree of danger? Any mitigation? Okay. And, we are always trying to adapt and recalibrate, like days like today. We're going to be experts, whether they're the match officials on the field, judicial officers, in the calibration systems. Even they don't have 100% agreement. It takes like a week to sort of, massage and think about decisions before we come to an agreement on that. Like, there's a lot of gray area in this game, and lots of factors that go into making these decisions. Lots of people contributing to them in the game. And we didn't really touch on much today, but as we teach our match officials, we're thinking about game context. Especially around some other types of calls we have to make in the game, not so much foul play. But like, for instance, if you had like 2 or 3 yellow cards already, you might change your decision a little bit, or if the score line is like 80-0, you might change your decision a little bit. How am I helping this game by putting someone else in the game? Like, that thought might cross your mind, and that would be okay. We understand that. And then finally, like, in the World Rugby level, they tell the TMO what angle to put up on the screen to help them sell the decision that they've settled on. Show me that back angle where they're soaking and they're stepping back out of the tackle, not coming into it, where it looked like from the front. There's a lot of that little nuance that the average Joe won't pick up on, but that's why we're showing that angle, because they're communicating with the TMO, I'm on yellow card. I want to see that back angle again, and then that's the one they just keep pumping up in the stadium and have it on the TV screen for us. Yeah, the match officials, they need to want to learn, want to participate, want to share, keep up to date, especially about what's going on in our jurisdiction versus what's happening in other regions in the world where they may be trying other law variations. but you can't make decisions without seeing the facts, so that's why, fitness and positioning is so important. And I just have a little phrase like knowledge, fitness, practice, that equals and comes across as being composed. And when you're confident, that really does project accuracy. You might not be accurate, but if you're using a process and you're, fit enough and you look composed, and you're saying the right things that are expected to be said, it kind of settles everybody down, because there's a trust that's there. And really here just for the community stakeholders, and that's everyone. It's not just coaches, but it's sometimes other match officials who've retired. We all need to have some appreciation for the reality that we've got sole match officials, and sometimes we are out there with new learning assistant reps, and we're trying to promote that so that they learn. That's our reality compared to that professional team of 4 or 5 with no cameras. And we gotta start thinking about match officials being like our junior players and like our second team players, and we need them to be nurtured and grow to fill in as they come up the ranks. So we want less of this and more of the happy young guns. Then we need less of this. So less of the shouting and bickering and criticizing and slandering online, and more support of each other. Because what John mentioned earlier with sharing video and stuff like that will really go a long way. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I know that the referees make mistakes, and there's only so many of us trying, and I was never perfect, and I'm only passing on the knowledge that I've gained and trying to pass that on. But if we work together, then and kind of have that calibration in mind in Ontario as well. Like, what are we trying to do? We're trying to help the community get better, like as Rob was saying earlier, with more think about athletes and how we help athletes develop. Referees are athletes too. Some of them work very, very, very hard at it and have aspirations to grow, and we need to support that, and that'll take all of us to do that. Okay, so we don't really have too many time for questions, but that's my email there. Any suggestions? But if you're just going to be a complainer, pull the pin. Thanks, everyone.
As ever, thank you to Karen for all the amazing work she does throughout the year for match officials. We greatly appreciate her. We did a few more for her. For now, though, we're going to have a bit of a break for 10 minutes before we move into our big last part of it.